friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Han and I'm a professional hand embroidery artist. In today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at the House of the Dragon Season 2 intro. No one asked, but Team Black all the way, and yes, I have read the books. I'll be giving some of my opinions, some tips and tricks, and some thread and stitch recommendations for those wanting to stitch the piece themselves. Alright, without further yapping, let's get right into it and watch the intro. Put these on because I'm legally blind. So I love how the entire thing is started off by a drop of blood on the tapestry and then we follow to wherever the blood flows from there. I think that's a really cool concept and really easy to recreate actually just with some watercolor paint on fabric. So yeah, obviously this is computer generated, but I think it looks very realistic. I love the way the thread comes up through the fabric. Wouldn't it have been so cool if this were actually a stop motion type deal? Would have taken them a couple years to make, although I did read that this took them a whole year to create, so they did take their time with it and you can tell, it looks great. Seeing quite a bit of metallic thread here. So all of these embroidered scenes up to like the 45-second mark depict things that happened before the timeline of the show, like the doom of Valyria and past conflicts and conquests. I just love the way the Iron Throne is so unmistakable. And then that last scene is Vhagar taking down Luke and Arrax, which is really sad but very powerful. So apparently this took over a year to produce, and they actually studied traditional embroidery techniques from like medieval times in order to get the animation just right, and I really think they did a phenomenal job. They took inspiration from older works like the Bayeux tapestry, and you can really kind of tell, it looks kind of similar, right? It really does look like the thread is traveling through the fabric, and it looks very convincing. I think they did a really great job. There were some stylistic choices that they took, like having Vhagar present at the destruction of Harrenhal and not having all of the members of Team Black and Team Green present at the last dinner with Viserys. But all in all, I could watch this all day. I think it was fantastic. I love seeing more embroidery in mainstream media. So for those of you who may want to recreate this piece yourself, there isn't actually a finished like total image of the tapestry online anywhere. Since it was animated, I'm not at all surprised by this. However, based on how historical tapestries usually work, the earlier happenings and events usually go on the left and everything works its way to the right as it goes. So all you would need to do is start with the earlier events in the intro on the left, and then as you move further right, add in the extra scenes that we see throughout the intro. So for example, the doom of Valyria followed by the construction of King's Landing, etc, etc. In my opinion, it might be a better idea, an easier task definitely, to just choose one or two scenes from the intro that you really like and then embroider those. For example, the construction of King's Landing or the Greens and Blacks on their last dinner. I'm actually going to put up a couple of my favorite scenes and go through the colors I think you should use if you want to embroider that scene, as well as some of the stitches I think that you'll need as well. So this scene depicts the burning of Harrenhal, which is one of the most important events in Aegon's conquest. As I said earlier, they do have Vhagar in this image because I just think they wanted to have one dragon on one side and one on the other side. The dragon on the right is obviously Balerion. And basically what happened in this scene in the books is Balerion just torches Harrenhal, which is also why Harrenhal is still in such a decrepit state now, as we've just seen in the past couple episodes of House of the Dragon. And I just think the use of like the two dragons on either side of this like bloodshed, this like bloody battle is so powerful and would look so cool in an embroidery hoop. So as I said earlier, it is actually very easy to achieve the blood red stain on the fabric like that. All you need to do is use some red watercolor and get painting on the fabric. I would recommend maybe having a hairdryer present if possible, just because it's very easy for the watercolor to seep further into the fabric where you might not want it to, and by blasting it with some heat from a hairdryer you kind of dry it up immediately and you stop it from seeping. So as for most of the colours used on this tapestry and in this specific scene, they tend to go with darker colours, kind of jewel toned thread colours. As we know, Vhagar is like a very dark greeny grey, and as we can see, Valerian is black, as he is the black dread. All of the thread recommendations I'll be giving are going to be for DMC embroidery thread, but in the description of this video I have some beginner friendly, cheaper embroidery thread linked, and they actually use the same key number system as DMC does. So if I say DMC 505 thread, for example, that colour will also coincide with the same colour in the thread that I have linked below. It's just cheaper and it's also good quality, so you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on super expensive embroidery thread like I do. Kind of looks like their teeth have been stitched with a metallic kind of thread. It's almost like a silvery metallic. I would go with the DMC 415 on this, that's in the diamant thread. And then for Vhagar, I would go with a 3362 in DMC thread. And then for Valerian, obviously a 310, which is just black thread. And then for the battle itself that's going on between the dragon's teeth, a lot of like greys and blacks, and then also everything seems to be outlined with the lighter metallic thread, like a lighter gold. So for the battle itself, let's say number 413, number 3799, 310, and then for the outlines you can go between a 3821 and a 3852, that's in the diamond thread again. I'm going to give you my stitching recommendations after I'm done with the next couple of scenes, just because they're all very similar, if not exactly the same, since they mostly just focus on line work and filling in areas. Okay, the next scene that I really liked was the construction of King's Landing. I think just because it's so recognizable, and as the camera like panned down over it, I feel like everyone just had that like light bulb moment where they were like, that's King's Landing, the red roofs, I know that place. So obviously color wise here we have a lot of reds, deep oranges, and again some more metallic gold thread. I'm gonna go with a 920, a 921, a 720 in some of the lighter areas, and then again switching between the 3821 and 3852 for the outlines in the metallic thread. Also looks like some of the outlines of the houses have been done in a black thread, which again is just number 310. Another scene that I thought was really powerful was the last dinner, when the greens are on one side of the table and the blacks are on the other side. So obviously a lot of them have white hair, so the color I recommend for their hair is B5200, which is just a standard white thread. Lots and lots of metallic gold thread used in this scene. I would go with the 3821 in this scene, it's kind of a brighter gold. And then the table itself is like a reddy brown, so I would go with a 3830 for that. And then as for the clothing, I'd say a mixture between a 369 and a 367 for the greens. And then the blacks don't appear to be wearing anything like super dark, but I do see some darker threads intermingled in their clothes. So I'd say definitely some 310, but it looks like they're wearing a little bit of red as well. So let's say a 300 in there and a 221 as well. The last scene that I'm going to go through is when Vhagar chomps down on Luke and Arrax. Looks like they stitched Vhagar a little bit lighter in this scene, so I'm going to go with a 3816 for Vhagar. Arrax is depicted to be very white in the scene, almost as white as Aemon's hair as he rides on top of Vhagar. So we're going to be using some B5200 for both Aemon's hair and for Arrax's wings. And don't forget the red splotches of red watercolor paint for the blood. And then Luke, as he falls there, he's just going to be depicted in black thread, I think. So some more 310. And then Vhagar's wings seem to be a lot darker than her body. So let's go with a 319 for Vhagar's wings. And then also, as always, she has some metallic threads interspersed in her scales. And there are also some more metallic threads just outlining a lot of the embroidery in this scene. So again, go back in with the 3821 in the diamond DMC thread for those outlines and for the details on Vhagar. Okay, so now we're moving on to the stitches I think that you'll need to do in order to complete these scenes or the entire tapestry if you are feeling very ambitious. It's my professional opinion that you would only need a very small handful of stitches in order to complete any of the scenes from this tapestry. I would recommend straight stitches, satin stitches, and couch stitches stitches depending on what scene that you're working on. Most of the stitches that we see are just line work, so embroidering the borders of things and then filling them, and that would be a combination of straight stitches, and then the filling in would consist of satin stitches, which are both super simple and kind of fundamentals of the art of embroidery. Some of the scenes, like where some of the great rulers are bending to Aegon during his conquest, I think the couch stitch would look really great in the areas where the thread is kind of looping around, like in the middle of their bodies. But other than that, you should be set with the straight stitch and the satin stitch. I actually think it's really cool that you don't need to use any super fancy, super difficult stitches for this project. All you would need to do is master the fundamentals and make sure that you have a good tension on your needle when you're stitching, and it'll turn out great. I believe I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I will have some beginner-friendly, super budget-friendly supplies linked in the description of this video, just to make it super easy for you to get started on this project if you have been inspired by this video. So that is it. I hope that you enjoyed picking apart the intro for season 2 of House of the Dragon with me. Again, I think they did a really good job with this intro, and I do just love seeing embroidery out in mainstream media like this. A lot of the subreddits that I am in on Reddit are going kind of crazy talking about this intro, and kind of just wanted to give my 2 cents on it and potentially give a helping hand to anybody that might want to stitch it themselves. So thank you so much for watching, especially if you've gotten this far. I would appreciate if you could potentially leave me a comment and subscribe to this channel if you like content based around embroidery. I make lots of embroidery style videos, tutorials, etc. and I would love to have you along for the ride. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!